Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adedugba. The top stories of this hour. Queues persist as price of petrol hits 1,100 naira per litre in Abuja, other cities. Rivers Governor Fubara swerves in, new commissioner declares Oko Jumbo-led assembly legitimate. Equatorial Guinea ex-Justice Minister Reuben Mange imprisoned since 2022, freed. And details shortly. Let's begin the news with labor matters, where stakeholders in Nigeria have expressed concerns about the need for the government to provide a national minimum wage that will reflect the current economic realities in the country. And this was during a retreat for members of parliament in Abuja, where they urged lawmakers to have a thorough grasp of the issue so they can intervene by passing adequate legislation that would ensure the minimum wage approved is truly a living wage for Nigerian workers. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, tells us more.
Nigeria's industrial sector has been characterized by disputes such as strike in the last few years, which have impacted negatively on productivity and the nation's development. This situation has been compounded by recent economic downturn, which has affected workers' welfare and raised the standards of living. While organized labor has called for a review of wages of workers, the Tripartite Negotiation Committee of the federal government says it has submitted its report on the minimum wage review and called on the parliament to have a proper understanding of the issues on ground before enacting a law on the nation's minimum wage.
By this seminar, we therefore equip members of the committees and other stakeholders here present to share experience that culminate into a robust legislative intervention.
While expressing concerns about the challenges facing Nigerian workers, the president of the Trade Union Congress urged the lawmakers to live up to expectations and put in place adequate legislation that will reflect current economic realities.
More than 30,000 naira to buy in 2019, you are going to need over 100,000 naira to buy it today, or even much more.
The chairman of the Tripartite Committee on the National Minimum Wage shared some recommendations. Also, Nigeria's Minister of State for Labour urged lawmakers to enact legislation that will ensure that offenders of labour law are punished.
We need to review the national manpower development towards having graduates from our tertiary institutions that are employable.
If people are not brought to book for violating our laws will just be a mere piece of paper.
The leadership of the National Assembly affirmed their commitment toward better welfare for workers and called for joint efforts to ensure fair labour relations.
Let our great workers be rest assured that the National Assembly stands side by side with the Nigerian people.
Stakeholders say they are confident that the outcome of the retreat will help boost effective labour legislation, especially regarding the issue of a minimum wage. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
The Nigerian government has suspended duties, tariffs and taxes on essential food items imported through land and sea borders for 150 days. This announcement was made by the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, at a press briefing in Abuja on Monday. The duty-free import windows include maize, wheat, husked brown rice and cowpeas as part of the Presidential Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan to achieve food security and economic stability. Kyari emphasized government's commitment to addressing the food inflation crisis and ensuring no citizen goes hungry. The government also will import 250,000 metric tons each of wheat and maize to support small-scale processors. The federal government has also inaugurated the renewed Hope National Livestock Transformation Implementation Committee to prioritize livestock development. And to unpack this, I am joined by a public affairs analyst, Theophilus Akatugba. Good morning, glad to have you join me.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you in your studios this morning.
All right. Let me start by just referencing food inflation as at now is about 40%, looking at the records we had in April 2024. How effective will this tax suspension be in achieving food security in Nigeria?
All right. First of all, when I heard of it, I was quite impressed because a few days ago or 1 or 2 weeks ago, I was on this channel and we discussed matters bordering on agriculture. And I indeed recommended that there must be a policy to encourage importation of food so that the market prices can be stabilized. You mentioned 40%, about 40% food inflation rate. The meaning is that what the government has done is to help to stabilize prices at home, even though there is the risk of being dependent on importation of food to the detriment of local production. That risk must be watched carefully while we take a look at the advantages that this policy can provide for the country.
Well, I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but are there other factors besides this import duties on food that need to be addressed to ensure we have food supply in Nigeria?
Surely. Nigeria, there is a global food challenge, no doubt. Now, this global food challenge is hinged on conflicts. Now, conflict is a primary driver of food shortages all over the world, and in Nigeria, conflict, the insecurity situation across the country affect food production massively. The second factor that exacerbates the situation is climate change. Climate change, the manner of the weather and what we are all experiencing globally, disrupting food production and reducing level of output is another big issue, apart from other matters like economic disruption. If you look at the whole world now, the conflict, Ukraine and Russia conflict, has impacted very seriously on food supply globally. And so Nigeria needs to look at the other factors. This is just a temporary measure. You said it's for 150 days. It could be extended because that to show that the government is very much aware of the fact that this could discourage local food production, especially those in the listed items, those who have invested heavily. So the government is taking its time and doing it carefully. And if we don't do that, we might maybe roll back all the gains we have made over the years.
Well, you touched on something quite interesting, referencing conflict, insecurity, and also climate change being drivers for food insecurity in Nigeria and also beyond. But then looking within our shores in Nigeria, talking about conflict, how about internal conflicts such as the farmer herders conflict we have and also the land use disputes? How is this impacting food production in Nigeria?
Well, you just mentioned it. The farmer herders conflict, I didn't mention that. I just used the word insecurity. How could farmers produce when there are constant crises and conflicts between people who are who want to use the same land, the same landed asset? So it is indeed a difficult situation for any country. So that is why conflict resolution must be at the forefront of even this agenda to improve the food supply situation in Nigeria. There are a lot of things that need to be done. First of all, the food supply chain, the food production chain has to be improved upon. You can't produce if farmers do not feel safe. But I do not want to say that gains have not been made, because if you look at the situation we are in today, it's not in comparison with where we're coming from. So more effort needs to be done so that people can feel safer to do more farming, either artisanal farming or commercial farming. There is a need for safety because farms are far removed from the cities, and so people are vulnerable if we have insurgencies and people who can walk in and bandits. It's just unfortunate that Nigeria is experiencing this, especially when food production is at the core of its government policy.
Okay, let's talk some more on this policy now. I mean, how might this policy impact domestic production of maize, wheat, and rice, and also cowpeas?
Yeah, first, the policy will affect prices for the consumer in terms of stabilizing prices. Those who make food locally are going to have a sudden competition. And so if there is anywhere the food prices have been unjustly, unrealistically raised, those who make food locally will be forced to moderate the level of increments that they add or that happens occasionally. So stabilization of prices is one impact, but it will impact on local food production negatively. Why? Because you now know that you are not too sure if you find a market for what you produce. And that has an impact on someone who has invested in maize for 2024, is likely to make losses, and it might potentially move away to another crop.
Now, this story mentions recommended retail price for imported food commodities. I'm just wondering, how realistic is it for the government to enforce these recommended retail price throughout the country?
Well, it has always been a difficult thing to implement stability or same price across a country like Nigeria that is not a uniform country. It's a federating nation where there are various governmental levels. And so it's a very difficult situation. However, we are in an emergency, very difficult situation. Some measures that do not look very popular or attractive might be undertaken. However, I feel that competition is the best way to stabilize prices instead of recommended retail prices.
All right. I know you touched on earlier on other measures to help, encourage food production and also stem the tide of food insecurity in Nigeria. You touched on conflict, insecurity, climate change, and now we have these
and economic disruptions. So.
Fantastic. And now we have tax suspensions. Now, beyond all of these other measures, what else can the government look at to ensure we have food security in Nigeria?
Yeah, first you must look at the food production chain. Subsidies must be introduced to help farmers produce at the best cost. The government must also find a way to find a banking system that will guarantee a farmer revenue flow while his crops gestate or mature. That aspect is lacking because I have seen that play out in a small community in Ghana. A friend of mine became a traditional ruler. He noticed that the farmers in that community, they were selling off their goods before they mature at ridiculous prices. And so he raised some money and stabilized the life of those farmers. And the yield at the end of that period was really, really fantastic. And they have sustained that continually till this day because the farmers were no longer miserable. So farmers need to be stabilized. The economy needs to be stabilized. They should be able to pay their children's fees, live a reasonable good life. And Nigeria also must do something about rural-urban migration because lives have become completely hopeless in the rural areas. And so people are migrating to the cities looking for white-collar jobs that do not exist. So if government can improve conditions in our rural areas, having access to healthcare, to electricity, and all the amenities that make life meaningful, there will be a reverse in rural-urban to urban-rural migration. And this will enough to higher food production because farming becomes close to the people, and that's the easiest thing a lot of them will undertake.
And that's a fine place to leave it. Indeed, we hope we get a lasting solution to end food insecurity in Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time and your company, of course. Theophilus Adedugba, Public Affairs Analyst, many thanks for your kind company.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being here.
Stakeholders in Abuja have identified gender exclusion as one of the major factors causing multidimensional poverty in the country. And while they agree that new ways and models must be devised to break the cycle of poverty, which can be described by generational, some of them spoke to newsmen in Abuja saying they have agreed to converge on a gender and inclusion summit that will address poverty head-on. Our correspondent, Amadine Uyi, tells us more.
Poverty and inequality
has been identified as a major problem in Africa, affecting many homes, and Nigeria is not left out.
We make the mistake that poverty is generic. It's not. How people experience poverty has a sequence.
Globally, about 1.3 billion people, or 21.7%, live in acute multidimensional poverty, and over half, 644 million, are children under the age of 18. Nearly 85% of persons living with multidimensional poverty are either in sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia.
Stakeholders say while there is a need to devise methods and ways to reduce poverty affecting citizens, available data reveal that exclusion of women and persons with disability play a crucial role.
We understand and we know that beyond conventional monetary poverty measures, we need to look at what sort of acute deprivations are happening in health, in education, in living standards. What is the big picture? And we want to provide a comprehensive understanding of the picture of who is poor and what sort of dimensions of poverty we should be reflecting on.
Poverty has a character. You see the character of the poverty in that northern town. This child, because she's a girl, has been given a set of girl chores. Fetch water. Fetch water because it is one of those areas where her community is deprived, has created school poverty or education poverty.
They say stakeholders have agreed to converge for an upcoming summit, also known as GS24 Summit, that will engage factors that promote gender-inclusive poverty and come up with new methods to break the cycle of poverty in many homes across the nation.
Gender equality and inclusion are essential for sustainable development, and the GS24 will explore every gender-inclusive pathway to poverty reduction by addressing health, education, and living standard, and highlighting strategic partnerships to advance these efforts.
We hope that at the end of this summit, we will at least have new policy proposals, new inclusion social design frameworks, more reimagined ideas that challenge our nation, our policymakers, our business leaders to deliver a new type of model.
The summit will also seek for ways to improve gender inclusion, empower women in business, and deliberate on eradicating factors which keeps girls out of school. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The queues for petrol continued in Abuja and neighboring states on Monday, extending to Lagos and other regions. Motorists endured long waits at the fuel stations dispensing petrol, while black marketers raised prices to between 1,000 and 1,100 naira per litre. Some retail outlets hiked the pump price to 900 naira per litre in Abuja, Nasarawa, and Niger State. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited attributed the queues to a recent thunderstorm and logistical challenges disrupting fuel loading jetties. NNPCL assured the public that efforts were on the way to resolve the issue. Billy Gillis-Harry, president of the Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria, confirmed NNPC's commitment but notes that queues may persist for several more days, particularly in areas far from major depots. And now to education matters. The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions have reaffirmed their intention to proceed with a nationwide protest on Tuesday. The unions are demanding the payment of outstanding salary arrears owed to their members and insist they will not relent until their demands are met. NASU National President Makolo Hassan made this announcement on Monday. According to him, following the failed meeting on Thursday and having heard nothing from the authorities, members have met in various branches and are ready to protest on Tuesday. Hassan emphasized that despite a warning strike several months ago, the federal government had neglected the union's demands. He explained that
the unions plan to escalate their demonstrations by taking their grievances to Abuja. Nigeria's National Population Commission has expressed its readiness to conduct a census in September this year. And this was during a press briefing in the nation's capital, Abuja, where the commission says that Nigeria is long overdue for a national census. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai tells us more.
As Nigeria prepares to join the world in commemorating the World Population Day on July 11th, the chairman of Nigeria's National Population Commission has announced its readiness to conduct a national population and housing census. The chairman of the commission says that this is vital for updating Nigeria's demographic data and ensuring accurate statistics for development, planning and decision-making.
The timing of data collection, where previous census was conducted about 18 years ago, resulting in the use of obsolete information. This could be misleading to policymakers, planners, and this misinformation can affect the lives of so many. So it's actually important that we really take immediate steps to conduct census as soon as possible.
Stakeholders at the gathering say the timely conduct of the census is crucial for tracking the progress of the nation and for making policies that will help address Nigeria's diverse population needs.
The NFPA is also very actively advocating for the census to take place, advocating with various stakeholders. The UNFPA is also working with the donor community so that once the proclamation is made, then we can help the government to mobilize the resources for the census to take place.
Inclusive data is the cornerstone of informed decision-making and policy development. It provides us with the insight needed to understand the realities faced by different segments of our population and empower us to design targeted interventions to address inequalities and disparities.
If we do not do it, Nigeria is going to lose so much.
Yeah.
So that's why we are appealing that government should make sure this happens. If it doesn't happen, we're in trouble.
The chairman of Nigeria's National Population Commission says that the plans have been concluded to conduct a census in November against its earlier scheduled date for the early part of the year. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
When I head to the court, where Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Soho, has denied a request to transfer the 80.2 billion naira fraud trial of ex-Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello from Abuja to Kogi State. In a letter dated July 2nd, Justice Soho agreed with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission that the trial should remain in Abuja. Bello's application submitted on June 10th claimed territorial jurisdiction for Kogi State. His lawyer, Adebola Adedugba, informed the court of the transfer request on June 27th. EFCC's counsel, Femi Pinero, opposed the transfer, arguing Bello should have attended his arraignment. Justice Toho explained that the charges involve the conversion and transfer of Kogi State funds to Abuja, justifying the trial's location in Abuja. Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has sworn in Emmanuel Frank Fubara, who was screened and confirmed as commissioner by the Victor Oko Jumbo-led assembly on Monday. The swearing-in ceremony was held at the Executive Council chambers of the Government House in Port Harcourt. Given his charge after the oath-taking ceremony, Fubara defended his recognition of the Oko Jumbo-led assembly, insisting it is a lawfully recognized legislative arm. He immediately assigned a new commissioner to the Ministry of Finance. According to the governor, though the new commissioner is not an accountant, he had observed him to be dutiful and diligent since they met during his campaign for the governorship election in 2023. And let's tell you that the Court of Appeals sitting in Port Harcourt has dismissed 2 appeals instituted by local government chairmen loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. The appeals were filed by Enyindia Kuki Gam and 6 others. They were challenging the decision of the High Court regarding the elongation of their tenure. The court, while delivering its ruling on Monday, found the appeals to be without merit and consequently struck them out. Earlier, Honorable Samuel Wanosike, factional chairman, Ikwere Local Government Area, spoke to us on these developments.
When this crisis broke out in October, the day the governor was served impeachment notice, that same day, Edison Ehie was impeached as the leader of the 10th Assembly and suspended indefinitely alongside Oko Jumbo, Sokari Goodhead, and the man representing the governor in Opobo Nkoro. They were suspended properly. They've not gone to court to challenge the suspension. And even at that, the Supreme Court has ruled clearly to say you must have 1/3 as a quorum for you to do any legislative business that will stand. Where did Edison Ehie get the 1/3 that elected him speaker when 27 persons out of 31 are on one side and him and 3 others are on another side? And that was why when we appeared before Mr. President, one of the conditions Mr. President listed out before the governor and all our leaders and we all in the villa was that you cannot take a budget of a state to 4 persons when you have 27 persons.
Security matters. Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has assured his commitment in ensuring maximum peace is restored on the Plateau. General Musa, who was speaking in Jos when he paid a courtesy call on the governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mofwang, maintained that if all hands are on deck, challenges facing the nation will be curbed. Our correspondent was there and now reports. Chizoba Anyonwe.
General Christopher Musa is on the Plateau to share ideas with Governor Caleb Mofwang on more efficient ways of achieving sustainable peace in the state. Ravaged by attacks within a space of over 2 decades, resulting from religious, ethnic, and sociocultural differences, the defense boss is optimistic that with collaboration between the armed forces and the government, more will be achieved in the shortest possible time. With the newly acquired aircrafts, the general believes that pockets of insecurity in the state will soon be contained.
I want to also thank you for the support you are giving to members of the armed forces and other security agencies, without which it will be difficult to operate. For us, the challenges we are facing are challenges that are surmountable, but we all need to work together as a team. And I think that is what is happening here, and that's what we are doing. And we'll continue to. I want to assure you that we are truly committed in ensuring that there is total peace in the Plateau. Nothing will stand in our way. As long as it is possible, we will make it possible. So you will always count on us. We will always be there for you. We'll go around and see the improvement that we made, especially the recent eyes in the air that we have, which will also help us in conducting our own operations.
According to the governor, despite achievements made so far by the GOC 3 Division and Commander Operation Safe Haven, Major General Abdulsalam Abubakar, and pockets of incidences that abound, he is confident that the support of his administration will improve the situation.
I can say it loudly, without equivocation, that we are better today than where we were last year. And that is kudos to the GOC and his team with other security agencies. I've come to learn that actionable intelligence is very critical in the success of whatever operations that you're undertaking. And it's our duty as government to make sure that we provide the enabling environment for such actionable intelligence to be gathered.
While calling for concerted efforts to consolidate on the successes recorded, the governor and the chief of defense staff believe that synergy among all stakeholders will return Plateau to its enviable place. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyonwe.
4 out of every 10 girls in Nigeria are married before the age of 18. And this was revealed at the high-level National Dialogue on Ending Child Marriage hosted by the government of Nigeria and supported by UNICEF in early 2024. The practice of child marriage remains widespread in Nigeria despite government efforts to curb the harmful custom. News Center's Niyo Moniyi explored the challenges that must be addressed, also the danger and driving factors enabling its prevalence in Nigeria. Have a look.
Any woman that is married, she's of age.
The issue gained national attention in 2013 when then Senator Ahmed Sani Yerima married a 13-year-old Egyptian girl.
Any Muslim who marries a girl of 9 years and above is following the teachings and practice of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If there is anybody who will tell me that what you did contradict Islam, I will say I will submit and I will do whatever they ask me to do.
The marriage sparked controversy and outrage, but also highlighted the contradictions in Nigeria's legal framework around child marriage.
Is a means of enslaving a young girl that has potentials to excel in life.
Anybody in their sanity would ban or stop child marriage.
An estimated 46% of girls are married before age 18 and 18% before age 15, according to UNICEF. While Constitution sets 18 as the minimum marriage age, Sharia law allows marriage at any age and has been adopted in many states. The Child Rights Act passed in 2003 also sets 18 as the minimum age, but has also been adopted by just half of Nigerian states, creating legal contradictions.
We do not have a legal system that backs the operationality of the Maputo law, where no child under 18 should get married.
Poverty, lack of education, and cultural tradition that see girls as assets drive child marriage. Parents often believe marrying off young daughters will provide financial security, but child brides face health risk, limits to their education and opportunities, and domestic abuse.
It should be abolished. You know, Sierra Leone is an African country, Nigeria is an African country. We should emulate what they just did at Sierra Leone.
It's criminal, you know, to coerce a girl who is less than 18 years of age. It's criminal, and by definition, a child in the African Union is a child who is less than 18 years of age.
The Nigerian government is pledged to end child marriage by 2030, but implementation and enforcement of existing laws remains a challenge. Activists argue that stronger federal laws overriding Sharia provisions, as well as programs to change social norms and provide alternatives for at-risk girls, are needed. Until Nigeria addresses the legal issues and underlying socio-economic factors, child marriage will likely continue to negatively impact thousands of girls. In Lagos 4 News Central, Ni Omani.
Coming up, Equatorial Guinea ex-minister imprisoned since 2020 freed. We have details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying tuned. The news continues in West Africa, where Equatorial Guinea's former Justice Minister, Ruben Mange, imprisoned since August 2022 for calling the oil-rich country's authoritarian leader a demon, has been released following a presidential amnesty. Mange, also a pastor, stated that he had to undergo a thorough health check, but said he was doing well and had not been tortured in prison. He had been arrested over an audio recording that went viral on WhatsApp for calling the Central African nation's leader, Teodoro Obiang, a demon, while calling for a national dialogue. Mange also said he did not receive a lawyer's visit or go on trial and had been in preventive detention. The African Transformation Movement has asked Gauteng High Court in Pretoria to set aside the public prosecutor's Fala report. ATM President Vuyo Zungala is seeking an order declaring acting public prosecutor Koleka's findings inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid, and setting this aside. The public prosecutor's report states that the allegations that Ramaphosa had acted in a manner of inconsistency with his office is his response to the burglary at his game farm and could not be sustained. Meanwhile, the ATM party argued that Koleka's findings were irrational and unlawful, whether measured by the legality principle or the standard for administrative action. And to unpack this, I'm joined by Zama I beg your pardon, I'm joined by Sizwe Richard, ATM Head of Communications. Good afternoon from here. Or morning, rather. Glad to have you join me.
Hello, hello.
All
Thank
right.
you for having us.
All right. The pleasure is all mine. Could you start by explaining the ATM's reasons for petitioning the court over the turn of the public prosecutor's reports on the Fala Fala saga?
All right. First and foremost, there was a Section 89 independent panel that was appointed by the Parliament of South Africa to investigate into the matter. And they have found the president wanting. And but now it doesn't make sense if former judges have managed to say that there is an issue with what happened in the president's compound. A crime was committed and it was never reported. That's an issue on its own. And this happens in the president's compound. Furthermore, foreign bills entered our shores without being reported to our revenue services. And they ended up doing business transaction with the president of the country. What does that tell you? Clearly, the president did not obey, did not uphold the constitution of this country, and did not have the public trust of the people in his business dealings. So that alone is a problem. Let alone that the public protector does not find an issue with all the issues I've stated right now. So right there, a crime was committed in the president's compound and was never reported. Foreign bills entered our country and they were never reported. And the Section 89 independent panel has found the president wanting all of these charges.
All right. Aside what you have mentioned, I know you talked about a crime being committed but never reported. Which other aspect does the ATM disagree with and considers flawed?
Okay, one of which is the fact that the public protector herself is being appointed by the president. So now you can imagine what happens if you have to investigate your own boss. There will be definitely a conflict of interest. And even the timing, she was on the brink of taking over as the permanent public protector. So to actually turn a blind eye on something this sensitive that is affecting your employer, that alone puts you in a position of conflict of interest with the people of South Africa and together with the office you are holding. So right there, she was supposed to have set herself aside, because right now it looks like she was singing for a lunch, and that is not the type of public protector we want. We want one that will protect the interest of the people of South Africa. And we do believe that she did not act accordingly when it comes to the protection of the people of South Africa.
Now, given that parties like Democratic Alliance, which criticized the report, are now in a coalition with the ANC, do you think these parties will vote against Ramaphosa in government of national unity?
Hey man, we already had that there are some clauses in the agreement of the so-called GNU that states that if any other party or the opposition, like the ATM have done, to call for the vote of no confidence on the president due to the very same issue, if any party calls for that type of motion, already there are signed agreements that state that they will vote against that motion. So that alone tells you that there won't be any fairness. People's public trust or people's trust will not be taken into consideration by the GNU. So which means the GNU will allow not only the president, if they allow the president to go ahead committing crimes and not reporting crimes in the country, it means all the ministers will also do the same thing that are in the team. So we do have a problem with that because we already know that they will vote against. Even one of their chief partners did mention that if ever there's a call of that nature, they will vote against it. So that alone brings a lot of problems that are, or that we can already foresee that will be brought by the GNU. And hence we took the stance to be on the opposition benches so that we can be able to play the oversight role for the people of South Africa and make sure that the seventh administration of South Africa is honest to its people.
All right, thank you so much for throwing light on this. Sizwe Richard, ATM Head of Communications. Many thanks once again.
Thank you.
And let's take a short break. Stay with us. In sports, the Honorable Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Eno, has encouraged Nigerian athletes to strive for excellence and achieve top placement at the upcoming 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, France. Eno made these remarks on Monday in Abuja during the official handover and farewell ceremony of Team Nigeria contingent to Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games. In his speech, Senator Eno encouraged the team to aim for top performances at the Games, highlighting the significance of hard work and dedication. He revealed that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has completely approved the budget for the Games, illustrating his steadfast dedication to sports excellence. The Nigerian wrestling contingent left Madrid, Spain for Germany in what is their last campaign before the Olympic Games in Paris, France. The wrestlers, which participated in Spanish Grand Prix, a pre-Olympic tournament in Madrid, had Esther Kolawole, 62 kg, and Ogunsonya Christiana, 53 kg, record bronze for Team Nigeria, respectively. Multiple-time world medalist Odunayo Adekwori lost on technical grounds to Norwegian Hall in the quarterfinal. Reacting to the performance of the team, the female health coach Ako Purity assessed it was an opportunity for the wrestlers to warm up ahead of the Paris Games. Before the team's departure for Germany on Monday, the Nigerian Wrestling Federation President Daniel Igali charged a contingent led by the Secretary General Mohammed Megan Disama to learn from all that transpired in Madrid for their technical advantage. And World Football Governing Body FIFA has listed Nigeria Premier Football League side Katsina United alongside 22 other African clubs from registering players. A search on the FIFA website showed that Katsina United began their ban on June 12, 2024, to elapse after 3 registration period. The ban is due to recent contractual infractions involving the club and some players. And some other clubs banned are DC Motema Pembe, TP Mazembe, Future FC, Al Masri, Zamalek SC, Horoya AC, Raja Club Athletic, Wydad Athletic Club, African Stars FC, Kiyovu Sport Association, Royal AM, and TS Galaxy FC. And that's all on the news. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Queues persist as price of petrol hits 1,100 naira per litre in Abuja, other cities. Rivers Governor Fubara swears in new commissioner, declares Oko Jumbo-led assembly legitimate. Equatorial Guinea ex-Justice Minister Ruben Mange imprisoned since 2022 freed. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.